Welcome to the book report. I am Teri Lucas, author of Color, Thread, and Free Motion Quilting. Learn to Stitch with Reckless Abandon. I have been a quilter for 30 years, 29, 30 years. And I love bringing new to me tools into the studio. Which is just a fancy word for quilting room, my sewing space, which I am in right now. And I would show you, except like it would feel very comforting, I'm sure. You may remember in an earlier episode, and I want to, before I come to that, I want to thank you for your patience in my coming back to this. I have done some traveling this fall, and then I had allergies. Like it was, I would not be able to sit here without coughing. Like it was just brutal. I wanted to take a couple of minutes. I have a couple of blog tours coming up. In fact, uh, before recording this, I recorded one that needs to be posted tomorrow. So I need to do some editing today. And I talked about royal icing cookies. Oh my goodness. You need to get that book. So I'm just going to put that out there. I'm going to show you the cover. Royal Icing Cookies by Morgan Beck. You need to get this book. It is just delightful. So, shameless plug, right? I don't know Morgan, but I love her work. And I love her work because in part it's process. I love her work in part because it's food. I love her work in part because you can see someone who's dedicated her time and her energies into making something beautiful. You may remember, or maybe not, in an earlier episode of the Quilt Report, I talked about C&T's essential color wheel deck. And I love tools in the quilting room. I love things that make my life better. And this deck it is one of my favorite things that I've added. So it's each one of the colors. I'm going to take another color out because it's a great black. I'm going to come and grab, maybe this one. So one of my favorite colors, magenta, I actually once had my office painted this color, so it's fantastic. And this color deck, it's just these beautiful chips. It is these beautiful chips, right? It is falling on the floor. Let me grab something from, here. So beautiful chip colors with that. What you can do with them is it is amazing. Like I just love these. Oh, look at that. That could be a fun color combination, right? Can you imagine that in a quilt? Essentially a red, a green, and a blue. So you have, you just have so much here. And then on the back of each one of the chips or the color, and these are exactly the size of a deck of cards. On the back, you have all this great color information, like where it is on the color wheel, here, let me just put these back in here. Where it is on the color wheel, you have the complement, you have a triad or a three color. You have this, you have the analogous colors, and then you have the split complements. So see the complements, the split complements, and they show you both ways for the split complements. So how cool is that? In my world of color, it is probably the best thing since sliced pickles, and sliced pickles are like the coolest ever. And one of these days I'm going to put my card deck back at, I'm like, look, I think my card decks, look, chartreuse, yellow green. They're both in the yellow green. Like, oh, this is just fun. It's just fun. I can play with color all day because color just like makes my heart sing. And I love to I love to play with color. I love to choose color for my quilts, or help, more to the point, I love to help quilters choose color. And then I also love to help them if there's something that they're not liking, or if there's something that they want to highlight. I love to help quilters choose thread for their quilts. So like, this is something definitely you want to get for, you definitely want to get this. It's just cool. I love good tools. I really do love good tools. The and the fascinating thing is C&T has lots of tools, totally lots of tools. And one of the things that I love about some of these tools is, so I get, because I am media, sometimes I get advanced copies of the books. And that is how the book report kind of came about. I love talking about books. I love talking about tools. I love talking about all this stuff. I've known C&T has had this kind of thing for years. They call it the Quilt Builder Card Deck. And how fun is this? First of all, it's kind of in a purpley pink thing. This is card deck number 3. How fun is this? And I love that they have 40 blocks in here, 40 quilt blocks. There are just so many blocks out there. And one of the things that I really love about this, and part of this comes from one of my favorite pattern lines on the market, is the Cutie collection, and in part because they do something similar. It's really fascinating. So that something similar is the pattern itself is in grayscale. Okay, sometimes it feels a little bit intimidating to have a pattern in grayscale, right? And I keep pulling I keep pulling that are just in 2. So hold on just a second. Here we go. I found one. So here's this one. This is called capital T, and it is really not that hard to block. Seriously, it's really not that hard to block. And so you have the block itself, and they show you where the lights, mediums, and darks are going to go. Now, just because you have lights, mediums, darks on here, and here's your capital T, right? So you have your lights, mediums, and darks on here, and they're placed well, right? So you have lights and mediums here. You have lights, mediums, and darks here. This could be a good block combination. So on the back of these cards, and this is brilliant, brilliant. On the back, they show you a couple of things. The first thing that they show you is the block itself with the grayscale. They also have a line drawing, and I'm gonna put some images in here too. They have the line drawing. Brilliant, brilliant. Line drawing is actually helpful because then you can do your own line drawing on a bigger piece of paper to kind of figure out where you might want to put your color. Weird. They also have a block that's done in color. So you can see their lights, mediums, and darks and how they've actually used them, or they're bright. In this case, it would be brights and mediums. Both of these are more medium, but brights and medium. So you see that this is a triadic, or it kind of like it could be a split complement color combination. It could be almost anything, actually. Your favorite colors. You can do it in shades of gray, shades of white, shades of black, shades of red. There's all kinds of ways of taking a look at this. The more brilliant thing, this keeps getting better, is that they give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different block sizes and what you need to cut for each one of the components on here. And each 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 block has like letter A is one, letter B is something else, letter C is something else. So they give you all the cutting sizes for each one of the blocks that each one of the pieces that you need to stitch out the block. That's, I mean, that alone is brilliant. Like, so you could, you know, one of the things that I've been seeing on and off over the last maybe 10 years is people putting, scaling up their blocks as they're going along. This would actually help you do it because um, it's all divisible by 3. So you could essentially scale up it in such a fun way with any one of your blocks. Then this card pack keeps getting better because there's things like mixing quilt blocks. Who doesn't want to mix, like, how do you choose the quilt blocks and that you want to pair together? So mixing your quilt blocks, corner alignment for piecing, Y seam piecing, figuring out how much fabric that you need for a quilt, yardage for rectangles. Let's see what else is in here. This is just so cool. A mix and match layout, complete with borders. And do you see that they use different block sizes in here? And then here's a merry-go-round layout. So they're giving you a whole big bunch of different layouts for your quilts from the blocks that are included in the block pack. And then I love this. C&T always gives like the best directions. How to use the block charts. So all that stuff that I was just talking about, there's a card in here that says it all. Using your block builder cards, other tips and ideas, and then block after glorious block, just waiting for you to stitch out. I mean, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Now, as a free motion machine quilter, okay, so my specialty, something like this can also be used to like make a practice block and then try your quilting motifs out with it. If there's something in the practice block that you don't like, use a complementary color to kind of knock it back, or use the same color to kind of make it blend in a little bit more. Or so this is where you get your color card deck out, right? And there's 2 ways to use the color card. There's always more than 6 ways to use anything, but use your card deck to find the block. Oh my gosh, this is my favorite block. No, it's not quite my favorite. This is one of my favorite blocks. Why? Because there's a lot of quilting landscape here. I'm going to bet it here is my favorite block ever, and I can't remember the name of it. It drives me crazy. But this is like, here's your Ohio Star. You can take your color cards, your color chips, your cards, and figure out all of the different ways that you can color something, right? So, and then you can take your chips and go to the quilt store and get enough fabric because you have all the information that you need in order to select the amount of yardage. Now, anytime you go to a quilt store to buy yardage for a quilt, I'm just going to give you this tip right now. Many of you know, I think you know anyway, that I've worked in quilt stores. I worked in 2 quilt stores in New York before moving to Texas. And one of the things that I love to do is help quilters figure out yardage for their quilts. And sometimes I can do quilt math in my head, and then sometimes I can't do quilt math in my head. And part of that has to do with maybe it's like you're using lots of angles or things like that. But because on here, you have all that information right here, and then you have the yardage chart, you can figure out how much yardage that you need. I'm going to tell you straight out, having worked in a couple of quilt shops, do yourself a favor, I mean, like, seriously, do yourself a favor. If something calls for 2.5 yards, get 3. As you're looking at the fabric, if there's one that stands out that you really like it as the backing, get enough yardage for the backing. So, what am I kind of saying here, right? Part of what I'm saying here is give yourself some fudge room. If it calls for 1/4 of a yard, get a 1/2 yard or get 2/3 of a yard or something. Give yourself some fudge room. So if the biggest piece that you're cutting is 8 inches, then get at least 8 inches more. Okay, it's sold by the 1/4 yard generally, but get yourself at least so. And if your biggest size is 8 inches, then so that falls within 1/4 of a yard piece. So get an extra 1/4 of a yard, because what that gives you is if you make a mistake cutting somewhere, at least you have the opportunity, at least you have the opportunity to make sure that you have that fabric. When I know, having worked in fabric stores and or quilt shops and as a sales rep, sometimes they can't get the fabric again. So if it's there, get it. And I know we can do the searching. But so as you're planning your quilt, as you're looking through all of these gorgeous, I mean, look at all these gorgeous blocks, right? And I'm like looking through them, I'm like, oh my goodness, there is so much we can do here with these, because look how cute these are. So as you're looking for your fabric, as you're looking through here, finding the blocks and pairing them together for your next quilt, also plan for the fabric. You can shop your stash, sure, but if you're going to a quilt shop for something, make sure that you get that extra yardage, and also make sure that you get the extra yardage for the backing. So in the show notes, there will be a link to the Quilt Builder Card Deck number 3. It's going to go to C&T's website, and a direct link for the color card deck. And just so you know, I don't get anything out of this. Like, I think I have a link, but I don't really get anything out of this. So you guys go shop. Like, if you're gonna add any, it right now we're getting close to like holiday season, or we're at holiday season. So a lot of people are doing your shopping. This is a great thing to get, because oh my gosh, it is just too cute. Right? Oh, look, the temperance block. They call it tea quartet. But oh my goodness, this is just like the best thing since sliced pickles in terms of getting it water wheel. This is a fun block too. But if you look, this is basically an Ohio star that has 4 patches in the corner. So anyway, my friends, do yourself a favor, go out and get this. Ask your local quilt shop to carry it. Like this is something that is like stocking stuffer, but also it is like, this kind of tool is good not just for quilters, but also for people who are who like design. This is a great thing to design with. The color card deck is definitely a great thing to design with. So these are things that I would ask your local quilt shop to carry. So and then have a class night with it. Ask your quilting teacher to like pick a block, any block, and make something beautiful, because you are worthy of something beautiful happening. Have a great day, and thank you for joining me here in the book report. All the same, it's all from the same base. It's different consistencies based on the different types of things that she's going to be using. And I'm going to pop images in here showing you like what I can pop in here. I'm going to show some images. Essentially anything that's going to be available on the C&T website. And I love too that nothing is like, there's no real strange ingredients. We can get meringue powder. If you have a cake decorating store, anywhere near you, you can get meringue powder. And oftentimes meringue powder is at your local grocery store. So this is and these little plastic bags, these are things that you can get at your local grocery store. So you don't need to go anywhere else or do anything. You don't need to go to a big specialty store in order to get this stuff and start playing with this. And she talks about one of the things that I really appreciated is that instead of, at our local grocery stores, we can usually get dye in liquid form. And she actually talks about getting dye in gel form. So this is something that you can either go online, or if you have a cake decorating store, the gel is more concentrate and it's not going to dilute or change the consistency of the icing on you, where a water-based food dye, like the stuff that we get at the grocery store, is going to dilute the icing. So it does make a tremendous difference. So she goes over the different consistencies of icing, where you're going to need that. She talks about how to cut the tip on the bags so that we know like the different areas where we might be using them in our cookie decorating. And then she starts going on about technique. And I love this. Cookies, first of all, cookies, right? Just cookies. This is something that as we're working on it, as we're trying things out, as we're experimenting with things, we can give them away if we don't like them. And the people who are on the receiving end are going to go, oh my gosh, this cookie is so tasty. Or, oh my goodness, they're not going to notice that the icing isn't exactly the way that we wanted it. So these cookies are a great way to experiment and continue working on learning things and process and getting better at them, and having people go, oh my gosh, this is absolutely amazing. And it's true as well. She talks about different shapes and how we can actually use them. So she has a square in here that she uses. And I love it because, it's the time of year we're wrapping gifts. We wrap gifts at different times of the year, but this is the major gift wrapping time. And so she makes a very simple gift wrapped box. Not complicated. It does take a little time, but with the tools. And then she does a smiley face, right? She talks about the different problems that can come up and how to solve them. She talks about different shapes, how we can make different things, how we can join different things together. With one, she makes such, I love this. I totally love this. Do you see how, this is clearly a process, right? It takes a while for sure, because with each layer you need to let things dry so that, you do your outlining, you let it dry so that you can do the flooding, so that you can let it dry, so that you can add details to it later. So it's really kind of fun. And the projects in here are just adorable. And I have to tell you, there's oftentimes, and this is why I love this. Okay, so she uses it looks like a little plaque. So I'm going to show you this in just a second. She uses this little plaque one, but she creates a whole big bunch of different things from it. She creates a happy birthday to you, so with like candles on the bottom. It's so cute. And then she does that, and then she makes a little placard. It just says congrats. And then she uses the same thing. Oh my gosh, Michelle Friedman, you're gonna love this, especially at this time of year, because look, it's Hanukkah. It's a Hanukkah cookie. It's a Hanukkah cookie. And so I want to show you this one. Before I tell you, you really just should go buy this book. Buy the book because it's beautiful, right? As quilters, we love beautiful things. And I'm going to relate this stuff to quilting in just a minute. She made a taco, she made a sun, but the one that I really love the most, here it is. In part because there's nothing really complicated about it. Of course, these things take practice, but I really just love this. And I know the lighting in here is sort of terrible, and I'm trying to see what you see. So she uses this, this is the same or something similar to what she used before. So she uses the same things, the same cookie cutters over and over again. And then she creates leaves and she does her flooding, and then she creates leaves on there. And you know what? Leaves are rather generic. I mean, they can be very specific, but on something like this, it can be super generic, and it all it has to do is look like a leaf. So, it can be really fun to experiment and play with all of this. Now, I told you I can relate anything to quilting. Well, just about anything to quilting. Um, I'm not a rocket scientist, so I'm not quite sure. So anyway, you know, qu- uh, most creatives, we tend to be a little bit frugal. So, and we don't, we, I'm not going to say we don't like single taskers, but we much prefer when something that we have can be a multitasker. And I'm thinking with some of these cookie cutters, oh my gosh, I have to tell you something. Um, I'm thinking that with these cookie cutters, if there's a shape that you love, it can also become a quilting stencil. And there's so many ways that you could kind of approach that. You can just put the stencil where you want it on your quilt, draw around it, stitch it, you're done, right? Clever. And especially if you're doing like a signature quilt, those ones that look like plaques, um, those would be great because then you draw this stencil on the fabric. It looks like a plaque, and then people know where to sign. Right? Clever. Very clever. I like that. But if you have like dogs or cats or shirts, you can stitch around them. You can do some stitching on the inside to make them, look like unique shirts. And then just, kind of meander your way over to the next one. So we can use those cookie cutters to be quilting stencils. And you can do it from just drawing on your quilt, drawing on golden threads. I mean, that would be brilliant because then you have the shape. You could also draw on something like freezer paper because again, you'd have the shape. You can place it wherever you want it, do your stitching around it, reposition it. It's so clever. But also, you're going to use some of the same motion. So like if you want to create something that's curvy, you're going to use the same motion to create something curvy. So if you have cake decorating skills or you are into royal icing, which I think I'm going to get into doing some royal icing stuff because like so fun. But if you're into that kind of thing, these two things can kind of cross over and enhance what you're doing. So if you have all those cookie cutters that you haven't done anything with in a while, here's your opportunity. Here's your opportunity to have a little bit of fun. Um, I would totally like. I am just smitten with this book. Now, some of us also like to put sprinkles on things. She shows us how to make our own sprinkles, and it's clever. And I actually have seen Jamelia Hilfiger make her own sprinkles. And not for nothing, they're beautiful. And they're not all the same size. They're all slightly different sized. And it's so cute. It is so cute. So here you go. This isn't just a book recommendation. This is an experience. I mean, royal icing cookies. Royal icing cookies. And look at that cover. Isn't that beautiful? So I will have a link in the show notes welcome back. Thank you for your patience. I haven't done a book report in a while. And let's go have some fun. And as soon as I get my cookie stuff, I will make a recipe, do a few cookies, and show them on Instagram. I am going to give away an e-copy of the book. So if you're interested, I in on my blog at TerifiCreations.com, leave a comment there. I'll put because I'm going to post this. I'm going to post it on YouTube, but I'm also going to post it on my blog. So head over to TerifiCreations.com and answer a question for me, which I haven't figured out yet. Here's what I want you to answer. What is your favorite pen or pencil? So what's your favorite writing utensil? And or you can answer, do you journal or not? Do you keep a journal or a diary? It in so it doesn't matter where you live because I'm going to give I'm giving away a copy, an electronic copy of the book. So essentially a kind of a PDF version of the book. So you will have this. So it doesn't matter where you live, you can enter from anywhere. I'd love to hear what your comments are on what your favorite pens are or your pencils, whatever your writing utensil is. And I wanted to let you know that in a week or so, it was right here just a minute ago. I have a whole bunch of things on my desk right now, and finding the one thing that I want, and I think it's out there. Anyway, I have two desks. Shocking, I know. But I wanted to give you a heads up. I have another book report or another blog post coming up, video post coming out soon that I'm going to talk about the C&T color card deck, which I've talked a little bit about that before, but I'm going to pair it with something else and it's going to be so much fun. Just a note too. So I've talked a little bit about, do you like my Calvin face? I've talked a little bit about the essential color card deck. I love this. Like to me, it is a great tool. This is also something that you can use as you're making your colors for your icing. So if there's a color that you want to go for, you can, if there's a color that you want to play with, this is a great way to find kind of like the color mixture for it. And how do you make it a little darker? How do you make it a little bit lighter? How do you richen it up a little bit? How do you achieve that color that you want? This can actually help. So quilting, icing, cake decorating, baking bread. Oh, we covered it all today. So let's go have some fun and happy quilting.